y'all. Today we are answering one of my favorite questions about God, which is, what does it look like to walk with him? I think we kind of throw around flippantly the phrase like walk with Jesus or be a Christian or give your life to Christ or turn your heart over to Jesus, and we're all like, that sounds great, but I don't know how to do that. And so after we give our lives to Jesus, which just means we want to be Christians when we want to live our life for God, what does that look like practically? That's what I'm talking about today, just a little picture of what that can look like. And we're doing that by talking about what we read over the weekend. Again, if you're not reading with us, it's not a big deal at all. But if you are, that's what I saw in what we were reading. I'm going to talk about 3 practical things we can do to walk with God or to live a life for Christ. Number one of the things we saw was that there was a range of emotions shared. We saw joy, we saw excitement about a new season, we saw hope, we also saw sadness, fear, vengeance, anger. There was every kind of emotion in these Psalms. And I think a lot of times when we're thinking about walking with God, we think, well, a good little Christian is joyful all the time. And she's just like, well, you know what? God's taking care of this, and I'm not really allowed to be angry. That is not true. You are allowed to have emotions. It's what we do with those that really distinguishes whether or not we're walking with God or not. Are we just living in those emotions? Are we just having them and just like really not having anywhere to put them? Or they kind of just fly out onto other people? Or are we taking those emotions and giving them back to God and talking to him about them, praying about them, and saying, this is the way that I feel, this is what's going on, and asking for his help. And so that's really one aspect of walking with God, is giving him every part of ourselves. Every emotion that we're having, talking to God about those and giving those over to God. And what that means, just giving them over to God, is something like, God, I'm so excited about this new season. Thank you so much for it. I just pray that you would help me to live it the way you want me to live it. Open my eyes to anything that you have for me and help me to walk in your ways. I mean, that's just giving him your emotion of excitement. All right, second thing is what we saw in Psalm 92:2, and it reads, it is good to proclaim your unfailing love in the morning and your faithfulness in the evening. It's a really practical thing to do, is to wake up and go to bed thanking God for his love and for his faithfulness. Why? Like, why does it matter? Because it gets your mind focused on God. It reminds you that he's taking care of you. It reminds you of all the wonderful things that he's done for you, how much he loves you, and how faithful he is, so that during the day, when we're getting the kind of the barrage of the onslaught of thoughts that God doesn't care about you, or nobody loves you, or why doesn't anybody want to hang out with you, or all these things that are really easy to believe in this world, if we are waking up and thanking God and being grateful for what he's doing, it's harder to convince us that he doesn't love us or that he doesn't care. If we're going to sleep thanking him for everything that he did during the day and how faithful he was to us, then it's harder, again, for us to believe that he's not faithful or that he doesn't love. So that's a really good practical way to walk with God. Thank him in the morning, thank him at night for his love and his faithfulness. And then the third thing that we saw is just kind of spread out over all of the Psalms that we read, and it's just the characteristics of somebody who's walking with God and somebody who's not. And so here we see with somebody who's walking with God, it talks over and over again about them being joyful. It talks about praising and rejoicing, like being, again, thankful and excited about what God is doing. They have a correct view of God. In other words, he's loving, he's attentive, he's fighting for them, he's rescuing them, he's powerful. So their view of God is correct. It's what they find in the Bible, and they are believing that. They're full of praise, and they see God in everything and depend on God for everything. And all of that ends in the place of hope. It all kind of funnels down into a feeling of hope. And so their life is characterized by hope. On the other hand, we see the ones that are not walking with God, that they're scattered. And this, they're talking about in the Bible right there, that what we're reading in Psalms, that they're physically scattered. But we also read in other places kind of that it can look like confusion as well, scattered thinking. No lasting fruit, like it's a little bit of good fruit here and there, but there's no lasting fruit. I think that's something I forgot to mention with somebody who's walking with God, is that there's eternal lasting fruit like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and doing things for God that last, like make a difference in somebody's eternity. On the other hand, if you're not walking with God, well, you're not having that lasting eternal impact that's going to last after we all die. So it's no lasting fruit. There tends to be an incorrect view of God if they're not walking with God. In other words, we saw that people were saying that maybe he was clueless. He's a slave driver. They wanted to get out from underneath the slavery, being enslaved to God. That he's dead, inactive, asleep, uncaring, impotent. So this incorrect view of God, which can just help make you feel like he's not worth following, right? And then full of self instead of being full of praise. Seeing God in nothing, and then not praising him and not depending on him for anything. And all of that filters down into a restlessness. So the question I'm asking you today is, are you full of hope or are you full of restlessness? If you're full of restlessness and you know that you're a Christian, take a look at those things that I just talked about and go, am I really walking with God, or am I just calling myself a Christian? And actually, that's the first of our Q&Es, our questions and encouragements, is examine if you're really living with God, or if you're just calling yourself a Christian, but not really living with God. If you're living with God day in and day out, you'll have good days and you'll have bad days, but overall, your life is characterized by joy, by peace, by lasting fruit, by a sense of thankfulness. If, on the other hand, your life is not characterized by those things and it's more characterized by confusion and restlessness, start talking to God about that and go, I really want to live my life day in, day out with you. If you don't like that one, your second Q&E is to bring one new thing to God, one new emotion that you've never brought to him. Maybe you've always been really super thankful and you've always looked at the positive side of things, but you've never really brought him your heartache. Maybe just bring him a piece of that. Or maybe you're on the other hand where you're just like, you're pouring out your anguish to God, but sometimes you kind of forget to thank him and look at all the things that he's done for you. Maybe bring that to him today. So trying to bring a wholeness, your whole self to God. So maybe do that. Or if you don't like either one of those, your third one is to start the Psalm 92:2 practice of thanking him in the morning and thanking him at night. That's super easy. Just being real specific about the things that he's done for you and praising him for them. All right, that is it. I will talk to you again. What is today? The summer just throws me off. Today's Monday, so I will see you again on Friday. Talk to you then. Bye.